Tenet is the new Christopher Nolan movie that I got to see in theaters. I saw this in theaters. My first movie back in theaters was a Christopher fucking Nolan movie. That's poetry, my friends. So in Tenet, it's about a group of special operatives that are trying to prevent World War III by using something called inversion. And that's all I'm going to say what this movie's about, because I know some people really don't know what this movie's about. They've seen the trailers. I only saw the trailers, and that's really the broadest sense I can give to summarize what this movie's about. Now, if you know me personally, you know that Christopher Nolan is one of my favorite directors of all time. Dark Knight and Inception are two of my favorite movies ever made. He has not missed. He has not missed on any movie he's made. And if you've been following my channel and you watched my Tenet trailer reviews, Tenet was my most anticipated movie this year. And has Christopher Nolan missed? No. I think Tenet is a really, really well-made movie with some amazing concepts and amazing sequences. But I will say I was a little disappointed with this movie. And this might be my least favorite Christopher Nolan movie. I'll get into the things I don't like, but first let me talk about the things I loved about this movie. This movie, from a technical standpoint, is one of the most mind-blowing movies I've ever seen. There are action sequences in here that just made my jaw drop. From a technical standpoint, choreography, all that shit. I do not know how they pulled some of this shit off. And it's because of this concept of inversion. I won't go into it too much, not to spoil anything because this is spoiler free, but basically it's like time goes one way and then time goes a different way. So if you watch a trailer, you kind of know what I'm trying to say. And there are so many action sequences in this movie that were just fucking mind-blowing with what they were doing with that concept. I don't get it. I don't know how he was able to pull this shit off with the editing and everything. It is why Christopher Nolan is one of the best directors working today, why he is an action masterpiece. He didn't use, I think, any CGI in this movie. Everything is practical, and that's all I can fucking ask for. And this movie is shot incredibly too. Everything is in IMAX, and when I was watching this movie, I just in awe of just how well it was shot. I'm just like, Christopher Nolan, I'm fucking home. I'm in a Christopher Nolan movie right now, and that is just great. Another thing I loved about this movie was the concept inversion. I think it's fucking fascinating. There are so many things I'm going to be thinking about for a while. What inversion means, what it does, and it's going to be something that film buffs and just movie fans are going to be talking about for decades. This is probably a movie that I need to see more than once because there are going to be details and clues that I'll pick up on the second time watching it and be like, oh shit, this all makes sense now. And like I said, people are going to be talking about this concept and how well it was incorporated in this movie for a long time. Also, the score is fucking awesome. It is one of the best scores I've heard all year. It does such a great job of really heightening the action sequences and the intensity of this movie. And it is so fucking fantastic. It's by Ludwig Göransson. I'm saying that wrong. I'm sorry. He did The Mandalorian recently, and I was a little skeptical because I think this is the first Nolan movie in a while that wasn't scored by Hans Zimmer, one of the greatest composers ever. But didn't disappoint. This soundtrack is fucking amazing. And I think everyone in the movie did a good job. I think David Washington just cemented himself as a great action star. Robert Pattinson was amazing too. Elizabeth Debicki was great too. I haven't seen her anything since Guardians of the Galaxy 2 when she played the Gold Lady. But she was fucking great in this movie too. And that's everything I liked about this movie. Now I'm going to get into the things that disappointed me in this movie. And the thing is, I raved about the concept of this movie. Like, inversion. It's fucking unreal and it's mind-blowing stuff. But the problem is, this movie has a really hard time of explaining it. I think the first act of this movie, it was just all exposition. It wasn't good exposition too. It wasn't exposition like Inception when you're thrown into the shit. And then afterwards, Hobbs, the master of, this dream sequence shit, he brings Ellen Page along and he's teaching her this shit and he's showing it to us. He's showing it to the audience. So it makes more sense and it blends together well. Here, there's like one scene of exposition where he learns some shit in like kind of a lab, and then throughout the rest of the first act, it's just him talking to new people. We're getting all this information just thrown at us, and it just seemed kind of boring. And I was paying so close attention. I was locked into this movie. You know me, guys. I fucking love movies. I fucking love Christopher Nolan. I was locked in this movie, but I was lost. I was lost for a majority of this movie. I sometimes didn't understand what the objective was of some missions. I didn't understand some characters' motivations. I was fucking lost for most of this movie. And I'm one of those people that thinks Inception's really not that confusing of a movie if you pay close attention. And here, like I said, was really fucking lost, and it had to do with the exposition that happened in the first act. They'll give information, but I think Nolan understood there was too much exposition, so they would give information in one location, and then it would cut to them like walking down the street, and then it would cut them like on a bus or something. Like, it was really strange, and it did not come off well at all, and it made the movie more confusing. And because of that, you're sort of lost throughout the whole entire movie. And I'm not saying you're going to be lost. I might just be dumb and I really don't understand this shit at all, and I might never will. But I swear, it just seemed like there was so much thrown at us that if you miss one word of dialogue, you're going to be fucking thrown off. And it made me, throughout these action sequences that I was blown away by, it made me just sort of roll with it. You know what I mean? I didn't understand really what the objective was of each of these sequences, but I just was rolling with it because of how fucking well it was done and how well they were incorporating this inversion concept into these action sequences. So overall, that kind of makes the movie's plot very confusing and then uninvesting. And another reason this plot can be uninvesting is its characters. I feel like none of these characters had any characterization, except for one. And I won't spoil it so that you don't know, but there was one character that had characterization, and it wasn't even David Washington's character. And that makes you less invested with these characters. Yes, they're cool and their relationship with each other is fine. It just, there's really no backstory that any of these characters, like we got in Interstellar or in Inception. You get no background to these characters except for one or two people. And it makes you less invested in these characters and then less invested in this plot that is already pretty confusing because this inversion concept is just so mind-blowing that you can tell that Christopher Nolan understands it, and it's so hard to explain it to someone that you kind of had to cram all this shit into different acts of this movie. Like, the first act's a lot of exposition, but then there's an action set piece, and then there's another thing of exposition where Christopher Nolan's just trying to explain this absurd concept to us, where this movie probably should have been longer to make it feel more organic. But overall, this movie felt kind of crammed with exposition, even though this movie's like 2.5 hours long. I will say, though, Christopher Nolan movies, they do take time to really appreciate. Like, I just saw the movie less than 2 hours ago, and I'm very confused by it still, the more I think about it. But the more I think about it, the ideas and stuff are really cool. It's a movie I definitely need to see more than once, probably multiple times, to really understand it. Interstellar, when I first saw it, I understood everything. I just didn't think it was, 10 out of 10 movie everyone else thought it was. But as years go on, I fucking love Interstellar. It's one of the best movies in recent years. So maybe that's what happened with Tenet. But I just think upon first viewing, I was a little disappointed because I didn't pick up on a lot of things that Christopher Nolan was throwing at us. Because like I said, it's a lot. And I want to be honest with you guys. I don't want to give you guys a bullshit rating. Just give it a 10 out of 10 because it's Christopher Nolan. I love Christopher Nolan. That's just how I feel. And maybe my rating will change as years go on. Maybe it'll get better. Maybe it'll get worse. But I'm just letting you guys know that. I want to be honest with you guys. So let's get to my rating. In the end, though, Tenet is a technical amazement. Some of these action sequences that I saw will be talked about for years. They are absolutely fucking mind-blowing. From a technical standpoint, this movie is flawless. I cannot believe some of the shit they pulled off, editing-wise, sequences-wise, practical effects, everything. It is worth seeing the movie just for that. It is fucking mind-blowing. With a great score, the concept is also mind-blowing, really interesting stuff. But the problem with this movie is I think it has a hard time trying to explain this concept to the audience because it is very complicated and it has trouble explaining it, especially in the first act. And then as acts go on, it gets even more complicated and the movie has problems keeping up with its complicity. Because there are times where I feel like I understand it now. I'm like, okay, I get it. And then you're like, oh, never mind, I'm fucking lost all over again. But this movie's not bad by any means. I know it sounds like I'm shitting on this movie. This movie's not bad at all. It's definitely worth seeing. It's a Christopher Nolan movie. It's still really, really well made. And like I said, from a technical standpoint, the movie's worth seeing alone just for that. The plot just sometimes can get a little fucking confusing. I'm going to give Tenet an 8.5. Yeah, this movie's definitely disappointing in the fact that I thought this would be movie of the year. I thought I'd give it a 10 out of 10 for sure, which I think that's unfair to Christopher Nolan and the filmmakers behind this movie. But I still enjoyed it. And I would not pick any other movie to come back to a theater for my first time in months. I was so excited to hear the first movie I'm going to see in theaters is Tenet. I was fucking pumped out of my mind. And I wasn't totally disappointed. From a technical standpoint, amazing. I would not have want to watch all those action set pieces and all the technical bullshit they do in this movie from my couch. The seat in theaters was great. Still go see it. Like I said, a little disappointed, but still definitely worth seeing. So Tenet, let me know what you guys think if you've already seen it, and when you do see it, let me know what you guys think. Thank you so much for watching, and click here to see more of Dave's Takes.